Mia's back slammed against the cold metal lockers, the familiar sting of tears threatening to spill as Amber and her two friends closed in. The hallway had emptied after the final bell, leaving no witnesses to what had become a daily ritual of torment. 3 weeks since tryouts. 3 weeks since Coach Wilson had posted the varsity roster with Mia's name where Amber's should have been. 3 weeks of whispered threats, accidental shoves in the cafeteria, and social media posts that made Mia's phone feel like a ticking bomb in her pocket. "Thought you could just walk onto our team and take my spot?" Amber hissed, her fingers digging into Mia's shoulders. The smell of bubblegum and expensive perfume invaded Mia's space as Amber leaned in closer, her perfectly straightened hair brushing against Mia's cheek. Behind her, Tasha and Kayla formed a wall, their matching team jackets a reminder of everything Mia had disrupted by simply being good enough. Mia swallowed hard, trying to steady her breathing the way her dad had taught her. In through the nose, out through the mouth. For counts in, for counts out. The techniques that had always centered her before competitions now seemed useless against the tight knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. "I didn't take anything from you," Mia managed, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. "Coach Wilson made the decision based on tryouts. Coach Wilson doesn't know what he's doing." Amber cut in, her voice sharp enough to slice through Mia's explanation. "This team was mine before you showed up with your fancy techniques from your preppy private school. You think you can just transfer here senior year and take everything I've worked for since freshman year?" Mia felt the edge of a combination lock pressing into her back. The pain was grounding in a strange way, reminding her that this moment was real, not just another anxiety dream that had been waking her at 3 a.m. almost every night since moving to Westlake. Her mother had insisted the move would be good for them. Better job opportunities, a fresh start after Dad's accident, a chance to rebuild. But standing here now, cornered by girls who'd known each other since kindergarten, Mia couldn't remember why she'd ever agreed. Tasha stepped forward, her dark eyes narrowed. "You know, Amber was going to get scouted this year. UCLA, Stanford, they were all coming to see her. Now they'll see you instead. Won't they?" She tugged at Mia's backpack strap, hard enough that Mia had to shift her weight to stay upright. "Must be nice, having everything handed to you." The unfairness of it stung worse than any physical blow. Nothing had been handed to Mia. Not the countless early mornings training before school. Not the weekends spent at competitions instead of parties. Not the nights icing injuries while completing homework past midnight. Certainly not watching her father struggle through physical therapy after the accident that ended his coaching career. The family's main income disappearing overnight. "I've worked just as hard as anyone," Mia said, finding a thread of strength to pull on. "Maybe harder." Amber's laugh was cold and practiced, the kind that could cut someone down in the middle of a crowded hallway without anyone realizing what was happening. "Right? 3 whole weeks of hard work. So impressive." She glanced at her friends, drawing power from their smirks. "Meanwhile, I've been carrying this team for years. But sure, you've worked harder." Mia thought of her mother's words that morning as she dropped her off. "Sometimes the world doesn't give you a choice, sweetheart." Spoken with the quiet resignation of someone who'd learned that lesson too many times. They'd been talking about the move, about starting over at a new school for senior year, about the financial realities that had forced them to leave behind everything familiar. But standing here now, those words took on a different meaning. The self-defense classes had been her parents' insistence after an incident at her old school. Not because she'd been bullied then, but because she'd frozen when she should have acted. "The world is full of people who will take advantage if you let them," her father had said, wheelchair positioned at the edge of the mat as he watched her train. "I'm not raising a daughter who lets them." Kayla, the quietest of the three, stepped closer now, her voice almost sympathetic. "Look, it's nothing personal, but you're messing up everything. Coach has changed all our plays to feature you. The team dynamic we've built for years is gone." She shrugged, as if this explained and justified everything. Actions have consequences. Mia felt something shift inside her, a quiet clarity cutting through the fear. These girls didn't know her story. Didn't know about the nights she'd spent in hospital waiting rooms while her dad underwent surgeries. Didn't know how she trained in parking lots and community parks when they couldn't afford gym fees anymore. Didn't know that this scholarship opportunity was possibly her only shot at college now that their savings had been drained by medical bills. "I'm not quitting the team," Mia said, her voice steadier now. "I earned my spot." Something dangerous flashed in Amber's eyes. The realization that intimidation alone wasn't going to work. Her perfectly manicured fingers flexed at her sides. "Well, that's the thing about spots on the team." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "They can be lost due to injury. Accidents happen all the time in sports, don't they?" The threat hung in the air between them, as tangible as the scent of floor cleaner and stale sweat that permeated the empty hallway. Through the small window in the exit door, Mia could see the parking lot emptying out, the last few students driving away. Practice didn't start for another hour. Coach Wilson was in a department meeting. No one would be coming down this hallway anytime soon. "Please, just leave me alone," Mia whispered, hating how it sounded like begging but unable to keep the words inside. Her eyes darted to the exit, calculating the distance, wondering if she could make it if she pushed past them. Probably not. Amber had been team captain for a reason. She was fast, with quick reflexes honed by years of training. Amber's laugh echoed in the empty hallway as she reached for Mia's backpack. "Coach Wilson thinks you're so special with your fancy techniques. Let's see how special you feel with a broken finger or two. Can't compete with a cast, can you?" She yanked the bag hard, spinning Mia off balance. "Maybe a sprained ankle? We could make it look like an accident at practice tomorrow." Tasha grabbed Mia's arm, her grip tight enough to leave marks. "Hold her still," she said to Kayla, who hesitated for just a moment before moving to Mia's other side. The movement came instinctively then, a response born from muscle memory rather than conscious thought. Years of training, not just in her sport, but in the self-defense classes her father had insisted on, culminated in one fluid motion. As Amber reached for her again, Mia's body responded before her mind could fully process what was happening. Weight shifting, center of gravity dropping, fist connecting with precise, controlled force. The crack that followed wasn't just sound. It was a moment frozen in time, a single heartbeat where everything changed. Mia felt the impact travel up her arm, the shock of connection reverberating through her bones as her fist found Amber's jaw with surgical precision. All those Saturday mornings at Master Chen's studio, all those repetitions while her father called out corrections from his wheelchair, they culminated in this single perfect strike. Amber's eyes widened in shock more than pain, her body reacting before her mind could process what had happened. She stumbled backward, colliding with Tasha, both girls thrown off balance by the unexpected response. The hallway seemed to hold its breath as Amber's hand flew to her face, fingers probing the already swelling area where Mia's knuckles had connected. "What the—" Amber's words dissolved into a pained gasp. Her knees buckled, not from the force of the blow but from the shocking realization that her carefully constructed hierarchy had just crumbled. She slumped against the lockers, sliding down until she sat on the linoleum floor, cradling her jaw with trembling fingers. Tasha and Kayla froze, their confidence evaporating as they stared at Mia with new eyes, no longer seeing the quiet transfer student, but something dangerous and unpredictable. The balance of power had shifted so suddenly that no one, not even Mia, knew quite how to respond. "I didn't—" Mia started, her voice catching as the reality of what she'd done crashed over her. Her hand throbbed, knuckles already reddening. She'd never hit anyone outside of training before. The controlled environment of Master Chen's studio hadn't prepared her for the visceral reality of striking another person with intent. "You were going to hurt me?" she finished lamely, the justification sounding hollow even to her own ears. Blood appeared at the corner of Amber's mouth, a bright shock of red against her pale skin. Not much. Just enough to transform this from a hallway confrontation into something that couldn't be ignored or brushed aside. Something with consequences. "You broke my face?" Amber whispered, her voice muffled and distorted. A tear tracked down her cheek, cutting through her perfect makeup. For the first time, Mia saw past the bully to the girl beneath. Someone whose entire identity was wrapped up in being the best, in being untouchable. Someone now facing the prospect of that identity crumbling. Kayla kneeled beside Amber, her loyalty overtaking her shock. "We need to get you to the nurse," she said, slipping an arm around Amber's shoulders. She shot Mia a look that contained equal parts fear and accusation. "What is wrong with you?" The question hit Mia harder than any physical blow could have. What was wrong with her? She'd spent years learning to defend herself but had always been taught that those skills came with responsibility. "Use only what's necessary," Master Chen would say during every class. "Never more, never less." Had this been necessary? The throbbing in her knuckles seemed to ask the same question. "She threatened me," Mia said, but the words felt inadequate against the tableau before her. Amber hunched on the floor, Kayla's protective arm around her shoulders, Tasha backing away as if Mia might lash out again. "She was going to break my fingers." "You heard her." Tasha pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she swiped at the screen. "I'm calling Coach Wilson," she announced, her voice higher than normal. "And probably the principal. You can't just attack people." "Attack?" Mia echoed, disbelief washing through her. "You three-cornered me. You threatened to break my fingers. What was I supposed to do?" But even as she spoke, Mia knew how this would play out. 3 established students against 1 transfer. 3 matching stories against her lone version of events. 3 teammates who'd known Coach Wilson for years versus the new girl who'd disrupted team dynamics. The reality of what she'd done, what it might cost her, began to sink in. The scholarship, the chance at college, the opportunity to pull her family back from the financial edge they'd been walking since Dad's accident. All of it potentially gone because of one moment, one punch. A small crowd began to gather, stragglers from after-school clubs, early arrivals for evening practices. Whispers spread like wildfire, phones appeared in hands, recording the aftermath if not the incident itself. Mia felt the weight of eyes on her, judging, assuming, condemning. She just went crazy. Tasha was saying to someone Mia didn't recognize. "We were just talking." And she attacked Amber out of nowhere. The lie should have angered Mia, but instead, she felt strangely calm. A clarity washed over her, cutting through the panic and regret. She straightened her shoulders and took a deliberate step toward Amber, ignoring the way the others flinched at her movement. "You know what happened," Mia said quietly, meeting Amber's gaze. "And whatever story you tell everyone else, you'll always know the truth. That you threatened me and I defended myself. That you thought I would be an easy target, and you were wrong." Amber stared back, something shifting behind her eyes. Not forgiveness or understanding, but a grudging recognition. For a brief moment, they saw each other clearly. 2 girls who'd worked their entire lives to be the best, who'd sacrificed normal teenage experiences for their sport, who'd built their identities around their abilities. 2 girls who, in different circumstances, might have recognized themselves in each other. The moment shattered as the double doors at the end of the hallway burst open. Coach Wilson strode through, his face a thundercloud, whistle bouncing against his chest with each purposeful step. Behind him came the vice principal, clipboard in hand, already documenting the scene. As Coach Wilson took in the tableau, Amber on the floor, her face swelling, the protective circle of teammates, Mia standing alone. His expression shifted from anger to something worse, disappointment laced with calculation. His gaze lingered on Amber's jaw, then traveled to Mia's reddened knuckles, making connections and drawing conclusions that would reshape all their futures. Mia knew with bone-deep certainty that whatever happened next would change everything. Not just for her, but for Amber, for the team, and especially for Coach Wilson, whose carefully laid plans for the season had just collided with the immovable reality of what had transpired in this hallway. Coach Wilson's clipboard hit the floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the now silent hallway. For a man who prided himself on composure, on strategic thinking 5 steps ahead of everyone else, the naked shock on his face revealed just how catastrophically his carefully constructed plans were unraveling. "What happened here?" he demanded, voice eerily calm despite the storm raging behind his eyes. 23 years of coaching, of building his reputation meticulously season by season, championship by championship, all potentially compromised in a single moment. No one spoke. Not Amber, still cradling her swelling jaw. Not Tasha or Kayla, suddenly uncertain now that an authority figure had arrived. Not the growing crowd of students, phones still raised, capturing the aftermath for school gossip channels. And not Mia, who stood with her chin slightly raised, already accepting whatever consequences would come. Vice Principal Hargrove broke the silence, her heels clicking against the linoleum as she approached Amber. "Someone get ice from the athletic trainer's room," she instructed, kneeling to assess the injury. "Ms. Chen, my office. Now." She didn't look at Mia as she issued the command, but the steel in her voice made it clear there would be no discussion. "Coach," Tasha finally spoke up, finding her footing now that the initial shock was fading. "Mia just attacked Amber out of nowhere. We were just talking about practice, and she just snapped." Coach Wilson's gaze shifted to Mia, searching her face for confirmation or denial. In that brief look past volumes of unspoken calculation. The regional championships were 3 weeks away. The scouts from 5 major universities would be attending specifically to see his team. To see Amber, yes, but more importantly after recent practices, to see Mia, the transfer student whose technique had the potential to elevate Westlake from regional contenders to state champions for the first time in the school's history. His dreams bigger than just high school glory. The coaching position at Pacific Coast University that had been dangled before him last season, contingent on proving he could produce truly elite talent. The salary that would double what he made now. The prestige that would finally validate the sacrifices he'd made for his career. The failed marriage, the strained relationship with his own children, the nights spent reviewing footage instead of attending family events. All of it now balanced on a razor's edge because of what had transpired in this hallway. "I was defending myself," Mia said quietly, breaking into his thoughts. "They cornered me, threatened to break my fingers so I couldn't compete." Her eyes never left his, challenging him to dismiss her version without investigation. "There were 3 of them, one of me. I did what I had to do." Coach Wilson's jaw tightened. He'd seen the dynamics developing over the past 3 weeks. Amber's resentment simmering beneath forced smiles, the team fracturing into factions, loyalty to their longtime captain at odds with the undeniable talent of the newcomer. He'd chosen to ignore it, focusing instead on choreographing the perfect routines to showcase both girls' strengths at regionals. "She's lying?" Amber managed through her swelling jaw, the words slightly slurred. "She's been jealous since day one. Couldn't stand that even though you gave her my spot, the team still respects me more." The vice principal straightened, her expression making it clear that sorting truth from fiction would come later. "Coach Wilson, please escort Ms. Torres to the nurse's office. I'll take Ms. Chun to my office. The rest of you, disperse immediately unless you witnessed the incident firsthand." As students reluctantly began to scatter, Amber looked up at Coach Wilson, her eyes brimming with tears that were equal parts pain and calculated performance. "The championships," she whispered. "I won't be able to compete like this." She knew exactly what she was doing. The truth of those words hit him like a physical blow. Even if the swelling subsided, even if there was no fracture, both big ifs, given the already dramatic discoloration spreading across Amber's jaw, there was no scenario where his star athlete would be competition-ready in 3 weeks. No scenario where the routine he'd spent months perfecting, designed specifically to showcase Amber's remarkable strength while compensating for her occasional technical inconsistencies, could be performed. As he helped Amber to her feet, Coach Wilson felt 23 years of ambition crumbling. The PCU coaching position required a championship win. The scouts coming to regionals weren't interested in explanations or excuses, only in results, in flawless execution, in that elusive combination of technical perfection and artistic expression that separated good athletes from scholarship material. His gaze drifted to Mia as she was led away by the vice principal, her posture straight despite the circumstances. The irony wasn't lost on him, that the very student who might have been his ticket to the next level had just become the instrument of his plan's destruction. He had built his strategy around having both girls, playing to their complementary strengths. Neither alone could execute the championship routine he had designed. The next morning, the consequences unfolded with brutal efficiency. Amber's parents, influential alumni and significant donors to the school's athletic program, arrived with their family attorney before first period even began. The medical report confirmed what Coach Wilson had feared: a hairline fracture of the jaw, Minimum recovery time of 6 to 8 weeks. Competitive athletics prohibited for at least 3 months. Principal Gardner's office felt suffocatingly small as the adults debated Mia's fate. Despite her insistence on self-defense, despite the lack of witnesses to the initial confrontation, the outcome was never really in doubt. Zero-tolerance policies for physical violence meant automatic suspension, possible expulsion pending review. She should be arrested, Mr. Torres insisted, pacing the office while his wife clutched tissues, dabbing at tears that seemed to materialize on command. This was a deliberate attempt to eliminate competition. Our daughter's scholarship opportunities have been destroyed. Coach Wilson sat silently, watching his career aspirations dissolve with each passing minute. When finally asked to contribute his professional assessment, he hesitated only briefly before duty to his longtime team families overrode any fleeting loyalty to the talented newcomer. Mia Chen is an exceptional athlete, he acknowledged, unable to deny what everyone who'd seen her perform knew to be true. But her integration into the team has been problematic. There have been tensions. While I can't speak to what happened yesterday as I wasn't present, I can confirm that replacing Amber at this stage makes our championship aspirations essentially impossible. The words tasted bitter as he spoke them, not because they were lies, but because they were devastatingly true. The routine couldn't be reworked in 3 weeks. The team dynamics couldn't be healed. The momentum they'd been building all season had just hit an immovable wall. By noon, decisions had been made. Mia, suspended immediately, pending an expulsion hearing the following week. The team, scrambling to rework their entire competitive program with their alternate athletes. Coach Wilson, making the call he'd been dreading to the PCU athletic director, explaining that circumstances beyond his control had compromised his team's championship prospects. The response was professionally sympathetic but unmistakably final. "We appreciate your candidness, Coach Wilson, but the position requires someone with a proven track record of not just developing talent, but managing team dynamics successfully. We'll be moving forward with other candidates, perhaps next season." As he hung up the phone, Coach Wilson stared at the championship banners hanging in his office, testament to past glories that now seemed to mock his current failure. 23 years of working toward the next level, the bigger stage, the prestigious university position. 23 years culminating in a hallway confrontation he hadn't even witnessed. The final blow came that afternoon when he received an email from the athletic department. Budget constraints meant his assistant coaching position was being eliminated next year. With Westlake's championship prospects now severely diminished, the school board had voted to reallocate funds to more promising programs. He was welcome to reapply for the head coaching position, but it would come with reduced hours and compensation. Standing in the empty gym, the space where he'd spent more time than in his own home over the past 2 decades, Coach Wilson confronted the ruins of his carefully constructed plans. No championship, no university position, no career advancement, just the hollow echo of what might have been, all erased by a single punch thrown in a hallway when he wasn't even present. The irony wasn't lost on him that in focusing solely on physical technique and competitive advancement, he'd overlooked the human element, the tensions, resentments, and breaking points that existed beneath the surface of his team. He'd seen the warning signs with Amber and Mia but had chosen to ignore them, prioritizing potential glory over necessary intervention. In the end, perhaps the most painful realization was that his failure wasn't just professional but personal. In all his strategic planning, in all his calculated moves toward advancement, he had forgotten the most fundamental aspect of his job, ensuring that the young athletes under his guidance were not just physically prepared to compete, but emotionally equipped to handle the pressures and conflicts that came with high-level competition. One punch had ended his plans, but the cracks had been forming long before Mia's knuckles ever connected with Amber's jaw. And in that painful recognition lay the first seed of whatever might come next. For him, for the team, and for the 2 talented athletes whose collision course he had failed to divert.